Hi, this is Mark Laughlin, living on the Raggedy Edge, with our review of the Early Rider Bigfoot 12, and this review will also apply to the Early Rider Charger 12 as well. Now, why would you pick the Early Rider over some of the other premium bikes out there? Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you'll see some bikes that have the frame, it's a super lightweight frame. Actually, the frame tube comes down and it's just a single tube from the steering head down to the rear axle. So it does make it for a low step over height, which does make things a little bit easier for a rider learning on the balance bike. So there's that advantage. The disadvantage though is that compared to this bike, which has this triangulated frame, this is going to be a lot stronger. With that top tube there and this triangular structure on the rear, this is going to be a much more durable, stronger frame. Now, might ask, why do I care if the frame is super strong? I mean, it's just a little kid, a little toddler, the first time on their balance bike, they're probably not going to be launching it off any major jumps or anything. Well, probably not. But one thing that you're going to find that happens is if this ends up laying out somewhere and some older kids get on their bike and start riding around on it, this bike's going to handle it. Whereas that one particular bike that has just a single down tube frame, you may end up with cracks in it. You may not even see it, so it may be that it just weakens the frame and then your child ends up suffering a crash if the frame breaks. So I think it's worth the little extra hurdle that it will be for your child to have this stronger frame for that reason, just in case some older kids get on it and ride it, or ride it maybe really hard. Now, another thing you'll want on a balance bike is pneumatic tires. It's just pneumatic tires because they absorb the bumps better. And on a small balance bike where you're not distributing part of your weight through the pedals, where all the weight is pretty much riding on your seat, it's nice to have a little more cushion there. And then also rubber tires, because they're much grippier than those foam rubber tires. The foam rubber tires, you can think of those like these cheap flip-flops. You get those on a wet surface and they're very slick. Rubber tires grip pretty good, even on wet, slick surfaces. And there's several manufacturers that do pneumatic tires. This is the only one that offers, I think, pneumatic tires with knobbies on it, so that's kind of cool. I don't really think that a child learning on a balance bike needs knobby tires, but it does look cool. So, and kids, dig that. The coolness factor, you can't discount that. And that's the whole pride of ownership for your child. A frame that looks more like mom and dad's bike. And, not a step through, like a little girl's bike, what we used to call it when I was a kid. I guess it's not proper to say that anymore. But nowadays, I go mountain biking. The girls I ride with, women I ride with, they have the convention. They don't run girls' bikes. They run the same bikes generally as the guys do, and ride as well as the guys do. Another thing is that top tube. It's a convenient handle for the parent to carry the bike, or for the child to grab a hold of it and lift the bike over obstacles. Now, another thing I like about this Early Rider is that the steering head bearings are sealed. They're sealed cartridges. These are 1 1/8 inch steering head, so this will actually fit. You could buy third-party upgraded steering head bearings and races for your little bike if you want to trick it out. In fact, I think there's a video on the internet if some guy did that. And so that's pretty cool. And then also the bearings throughout the wheels. And the wheels are also sealed bearings as well. So if now hopefully your child has that pride and ownership of this bike, and what takes care of it, puts it up and puts it away when done with it. But if it gets left outside and the lawn sprinklers come on, you're probably going to be just fine with these steering head bearings being sealed. Now, the rear brake is a full-on. It's a center pull type brake. So that's actually a better brake than what you might find on some of the other bikes that might have just a side pull brake, where the majority of the pressure is is coming from one side and the other side is kind of static. This is a more balanced way of braking, of having the brake pads grip the rim equally on both sides. Now, ideally, man, this bike would be cool if it had a disc brake, and that would be kind of, at least if it had like a hub that you could, you know, mount a third-party disc brake on. That would be pretty sweet. You know, a hydraulic disc brake would be awesome. Some other things I would like to see is maybe some little, you know, little tiny plastic fenders front and rear, maybe something that flared off of the seat here, just to provide a little bit of preventing, so the, you know, mom doesn't have to, or dad doesn't have to do the Tide detergent test to see if they can remove the stains that are slung up the back of the shirt when it's riding out in the wet. These do have nice aluminum rims on them, so that's really cool. It's steel spokes, so that's you know, premium stuff. That's what you get when you go with a quality bike. Now, a bike that encourages, you know, escape from the black mirror of electronics, but without encouraging that, you know, soy SJW virtue signaling, where this bike looks like it's aggressive. It looks like it's ready to go out and do some racing, as opposed to some bikes that are more for parents stuck in the coddling kind of womb of a single marshmallow mentality. You know, helicopter parents. This bike is kind of for a child to kind of start establishing some independence. Now, as for like helicopter parents, you know, sometimes it's better to learn, you know, some impact physics early to avoid more significant impact physics later. And it's kind of symbolized by this gentle rise of this top tube on the frame. You can think of, you know, nice little impact there if you were to slide forward, versus say that just straight down tube one, single down tube type bikes where the impact is only going to be there at the steering stem. Now, the social metaphysics of social media, the social media obsessed digital world, versus the reality metaphysics, that is the application of reason and logic to the evidence of one's senses experienced when out in the real world. Now, social metaphysics, if it doesn't ultimately kill you, it will undermine self-confidence and happiness. Now, a reality-oriented mastery of the world drives self-confidence and happiness. It is upon such fine philosophical detail that the balance of one's course of life just might hinge. So, choose well. That's laying quite a lot at the foot of something as simple as a balance bike. But sometimes, you know, little things like this do determine that kind of change in the fork in the road for a child, to go out and actually be a little more aggressive in life, you know, living on the raggedy edge just a little bit. Now, I really like this raw aluminum look on this bike. It just looks like in motocross what we might call factory look. You know, it just looks, it's gorgeous. You know, nice looking welds on it, nice brushed polished look to it. And as it wears and takes some dings and gets beat up a bit, it's still going to look great. Versus some of the other bikes that are painted. You know, bikes that are painted, you know, kid, you know, crashes or just lays it on the ground, lays it in the gravel and the rocks or whatever, it's going to end up getting scratched, and it's just going to look a little bit ragged looking. Something I would like to see on this bike is maybe some like a clamp-on footrest, just something to get maybe some little tiny pegs there, so that when your child gets really good at doing the balance bike thing, they can actually start transitioning and bringing their feet up onto some foot pegs, and help maybe kind of get that mental thing going for when they're ready to advance to pedals. Now, you might, as a parent, you might be looking at this bike and going, geez, am I going to spend over $200 for a balance bike for my child? Well, here's the way to look at it. Yeah, this is expensive for a balance bike. You could probably find, you know, bikes half the price, or, you know, maybe even a third of the price, like on Amazon or something. Some cheap bikes that have the foam tires. Don't get the foam tires. Get pneumatic tires. I mean, sure, it's a little bit less maintenance, but man, these are going to be so much better for your child developing their riding skills. But you look at it as if you buy one of those bikes, like, you know, those copy bikes off of Amazon or at Walmart or whatever, basically when your child grows up and outgrows it, it's going in the garbage. It's just not going to have any resale value whatsoever. Just, you're going to throw it away. So whatever money you put into buying that cheap bike is money that's gone. Now this bike will hold some resale value. Now of course you're not going to get, you know, the full over whatever $220 some back out of it, but if you can sell it for $75, okay, now your price difference isn't looking so harsh. So buy quality, let your child have the joy of pride of ownership, a good quality bike that's not going to just trash out on him, and then if you know, you can sell it when he outgrows it, or if you have other children, it'll be there for your other siblings. So this is just very, very well made, very good quality throughout. You know, good parts on. I mean, to use a Ritchie handlebars, Ritchie steering stem, using the, you know, standard 1 1/8 inch headset bearings, sealed headset bearings, not just the crappy loose ball bearings in there. You know, nice tires, good grippy tires. Looks like even aluminum hubs, steel spokes, aluminum rims. You'll have to get your own valve stem cover. Gorgeous aluminum frame, good adjustability on the seat. You know, some others will get a little bit lower, but that's because they're running that single down tube frame. This is going to be a lot sturdier if bigger kids go out there and ride on it. You know, nice triangle here in the rear with your chain stays, as you might call it, even though it doesn't have a chain. And then this center pull rear brake is pulling on both sides. The center pull rear brake, which pulls both brake pads equally. So that's just good feel on the brake. Kids aren't going to care that much, but it's just nice to see those kind of touches. Now the seat just feels really nice. It's got a nice foam feel to it, almost maybe like insulite padding. So that's a good shock absorber there. The little kind of the rivet look on the rear seat gives it kind of a old school look to it, more from the road biking side. I think I don't see that much in the mountain biking, but still looks kind of cool. Just well made little bike that's a joy to own. So anyway, watch for the second episode after our test pilot has had about say 6 months or a year's worth of time on it. We'll report back with a follow-up review. So thanks for purchasing this review, and watch for future reviews, the follow-up review to come. It's Mark Laughlin, living on the raggedy edge. Thanks for watching.